Okay, it took like 10 tries, but now I'm playing audio through one set of headphones and recording audio with another set of headphones. Welcome to another race recap. Here we are, after more than a year away from racing. Back at Kingswood, and this is the 3-4 race, and it's week number 1. It was about 50 degrees, felt pretty chilly at the beginning. I warmed up in a light winter coat, but by the time I got to the start line, I felt nice and warm and ready to go. So if you've never seen this course before, it's sort of a hot dog style, where you've got 2 straightaways, and at the ends you have very tight 180s. And so you get a lot of slowing down, sprinting, over and over and over again, which is made for me. It's the type of effort that I like to do. There were 11 or 20 or 30 Bolts riders in this race, which is pretty crazy. They were like at least a third of the field, and the total field was 38 people, which was pretty good for this race. I mean, prior times that I've done this, there were only 10 to 20 at the most. So I'm pretty sure the last video that I posted was in this weird sort of square 4:3 aspect ratio. And now this one is too. Hopefully I'll figure out next video to not do that. So if you don't know about the King's race, Kingswood, it's a points race, so we do 24 laps in the 3-4 race. And every 4 laps you sprint for the finish line, which we're crossing now, and they give points to the top 3 riders. So your goal is to accumulate points throughout the series. There's 4 races in the series, and so you can win individual races by getting the most points in that race, and you can win the series by getting the most points overall in the series. My plan going in was to attack after the first sprint, because I know people, once you sprint, you sort of want to recover, and so that's a good opportunity to attack if you can moderate your sprint effort and keep going. My goal really was to bring out my friend Ian, who's on 1111 cycling, who are in purple kits. Don't see any right now. My friends Ian and Nick Skaggs, there's an 1111 right there in purple. My friends Ian and Nick Skaggs, we were teammates last year, but since there was no racing, we didn't get to race together, and they since moved on. So I know that they're very strong, and they're looking to move up categories, so I knew they would be trying to get as many points as possible. And in the end, I think actually this strategy was good as far as positioning. I've struggled in the past with positioning in this race, not quite being where I wanted to be at the right time. But following them, they seem to be in the right place at the right time, and yeah, that was helpful. But overall, once I got past, being in the right position, I was waiting for them to sprint for the points. When really what I should have been doing is going for it myself. So we'll see in the next. So actually, the first sprint is won by Nick, which you'll see. It might be on this might be the lap here. Yeah, there's a bell ringing, so this should be the sprint lap. And was off the front. So I'm making up some positions on the outside to try to get to the right position for the sprint points. What's really interesting about this race is it's very easy to be at the front at the wrong time. You could very easily find yourself near the front with a lap to go before the sprint. What you really want is to be in the middle or towards the back with a group of this size, and move your way up during this back stretch. It's very easy to move up during this back stretch because you're always coasting into the corner. So if you just keep the pressure on the pedals, you're willing to give up the draft for a few seconds, it's extremely easy to move up. This must not have been the points lap. This is the lap before the points lap. But now we'll be going into the points lap, I would say. Which means you should see some attack on here. Yep, there goes Nick on the left. So I never in a million years thought Nick would have the power to hold this group off. So I didn't even think about going with him, but he's pretty amazing. I will say, compared to last year, I have gotten better at taking that corner. So now you can see that, we're going 27, 28, but we're not accelerating anymore. Some attacks go, but I don't want to be too far forward, so I let some people get in front of me, because I know we got a lot of drafting to do on this back straight. I don't know if I finished saying what my overall strategy was. But yeah, I was marking 11-11, and my goal was to be in whatever position they were in and sprint for the points. But I wasn't aggressive enough. I wasn't being assertive with my own power. And so I waited for others to start sprinting, which had me on the back foot. Now, there were some instances where I was in good positioning despite that, but yeah, being a bit more aggressive would have been really helpful. So you can see how long this sprint is. I mean, look how much ground I've made up. I'm trying to come around to get some points, but this is pretty much the theme of the day. I just don't quite get it. So I was maybe fifth wheel there for the first lap, and Nick got the top points. So, like I said, or maybe I didn't say, but my plan was to break away now. And if I was going to do that, I would have kept pedaling. But I saw how fast the group was. I mean, there were some really strong riders in this group, and there was 0% chance that I would be breaking away. Now, my goal was to take Ian with me. I figured he would see the opportunity and come with. But Ian had just sprinted, and I wasn't so confident that he was going to be able to make the decision to come with. No, some more flyers, whatever. So I'm on Team Dayton and have one teammate in the race, Andy, who's on the left in the fluoro and blue right there with the red and gray Cervelo. He was totally awesome. He was flogging himself in the front. He knew he didn't quite have the fitness to really contend any of the sprints, so he just put himself on the front whenever he needed to keep breakaways at bay, to send attacks to keep the race fast, even though he knew he wasn't getting away in the attacks. Just spicing up the race to keep it fast, keep it moving, which is really good for me because I really benefit from a draft. So keeping the race fast is really beneficial to me. But you can see out of every corner you're doing 500, 600 watts. And just over and over and over again. So my average power for this race was only about 200 watts. And I'm about 145 pounds. But my normalized power was over 260 watts. So that tells you, how crazy the on-off is, the on-off switch of power in this race. My normalized was more than 25% higher than my average. So the Bulls riders are in the red. And yeah, there were a lot of them. Some of the stronger riders were actually some of the juniors. This kid, Brandon, who I met 2 years ago, the last time we had this series due to COVID, and he was, he was obviously younger, and he had joined, I believe it was a Cat 4, and he joined the 3-4 race, and just held on as long as he could. He went for breakaway. Very aggressive rider, going for it. And this year he managed, later in this race, he managed to get in a breakaway with maybe 4 others, and they managed to stay away from one points lap. So I'm not sure if he got the points, but he's developed a lot in that time. And he had a couple teammates, one of which I was sort of marking as well, and we made a lot of moves together. So going into this race, I was, it's been over a year since I've raced, but that's sort of beside the point. I was so anxious. I'm always anxious before races, and it, really inhibits it can really inhibit my performance, because, I'm sure we've all experienced this when we're cycling. If we're feeling stressed or whatever, you're breathing harder than the effort really needs, and you're just sort of wasting energy breathing almost. But today I managed to just settle down pretty much just before the start, and it felt just incredible the whole time. Like, this race felt so easy. Even though I didn't get the results, but that's more down to some decision making than really my ability. And this race it felt so easy, which was really surprising, especially given how fast it was. Computer is struggling a little bit to play the video. Hopefully it doesn't cause too many problems. You can see that we're going, my GPS is so confused by the route that it auto pauses, and I remembered, after hearing the chime, that in the past I've turned off auto pause for this race because it gets so annoying. I'm looking back at the 3-4 races from 2 years ago. In one race we averaged 22 miles an hour. Now we probably only had 10 people in that race. The next race we averaged 24 miles an hour, and we had like maybe 30 people in that race. In this race we've got 38, and we averaged maybe just over 25 miles an hour. So this race was fast for this version of the race was fast, relatively. So that sort of resulted in me throwing my plan to go for a solo break to trigger Ian out the window, because I did not see any hope in us two staying away on our own. Ian is very fit, but we are going 26 miles an hour up this hill that, if you're riding alone, you could easily be in your little ring and your smallest gear and, ticking of it. So it takes a lot of power to stay away. And remember, that average speed is including coming to almost a complete stop at the ends of the course. Andy's yelling at me to go follow Nick. Thank you, Andy. So yeah, I'm moving up. Nick's going for it again. Spoiler alert, he doesn't get it this time. But it was very admirable. And I should have been racing a little bit more like that. But I'm in what can only be called excellent position. I've got 3 people ahead of me for the sprint. That is truly, that's basically as ideal as it gets. But I don't seize the opportunity. I'm sitting and I'm waiting, and you can't see, but meanwhile, people are about to blow past me. I get caught behind Nick a little bit, and this is the sprint where I get blown away. In most of the sprints I was right around top 5, but this one, I was in position, but I didn't seal it. Didn't seal the deal. And I'm upset about it. So yeah, that's basically what I'm talking about. I had the position. I should have just gone for it. But instead I waited, and I ended up getting caught behind a wheel. And that ended up happening, if not a couple more times, at least the final sprint on the last lap, it happened as well. So one of the interesting things about this edition of the race was the teams. So there was 11-11, like I said, and I know that they have ambitions to cat up. So I know that they're willing to work very hard. And then there's Bulls, which has a ton of riders. So even if they don't work hard, they have so many riders that each one of them only has to work hard for 15 seconds to accomplish something. There's also the Armada cycling team, which had a few. There were some other teams too. I don't remember. I mean, there were a couple of juniors that I talked about. I think they're juniors still. And then, of course, there was Andy, my teammate, who was a superhero. So, anyways, there were all these teams in the race, and it was just me and Andy. So I knew that so long as whatever break goes up the road doesn't contain everyone from these teams, I wouldn't really have to do anything to bring the brakes back. And that was really nice. So when one person goes for a flyer from Bulls, I know that Armada and 1111, well, they're not going to let that go. But unfortunately, a group did get up the road at one point, which had a very good composition, and as I said before, they got some points. This is Ian on the left with the blue shoes, and he was my main target. This kid right in front of me with the blue shorts, white top, skin suit, the blue Pinarello F10, we worked together a lot to try to make things happen later in the race. So I just said something like, there's a Bulls rider up there. The reason I said that is because there was a Bulls rider trying to break away. And so with Bulls rider sitting at the front, slowing the pace, that gives the breakaway rider a chance to get away. Now, you never know how strong that breakaway rider really is, but certainly has a better chance if we're going slow. But apparently some people went around the top, and as you can see, we are going pretty fast. Computer is stuttering. This dude just asked me, what does 15 laps mean? And I was like, well, when it says 0, that means we're done. He had asked me before about if it was a sprint lap or not, so I was like kind of annoyed that he was asking me again. Later in the race, he decided to spit, and with just like people behind him, so several of us got covered in his spit, so that was cool. So I'm coming around because I'm concerned that there's going to be a breakaway being formed. So I made that effort to come and move up quite a bit. A lap, so this is a sprint lap. There's Andy up front again. He's so awesome.
Go, Brandon, go!
can see, I'm back here marking the 1111 riders. Bumping my hand into his hip a little bit as we're going around that turn. Maybe the last lap wasn't a bell lap. Maybe that was just some people ringing a bell. It was really confusing throughout the race. I don't think I think there was a lot of confusion about when it was a sprint lap. Not just the one guy who asked me and then asked me other questions, but throughout. Alright, so there's the bell again, but is it actually a bell lap? If I remember correctly, in the sprint on this lap, this was one of the laps where I ended up being sort of impeded by someone. Here we go. So they break off. But I don't quite put in all the effort because I saw this kid coming. So I let him get in front of me so I can get a bit more draft. He waves me through. So I say, okay. I was a little bit confused. I didn't realize that guy wasn't pedaling. But now I'm just catching Ian. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Ian's putting in a dig. And we're gonna break away. Now I'll admit that after this corner I did make a bit of a mistake. I should have pulled through. But for some reason my brain didn't quite compute that this was it. This was the opportunity. I figured that we didn't have any gap. But at some point I turned around and I saw, oh, we did have a gap, and so I started pedaling to come around. But it was too late. Ian didn't follow, and because it was too late, he didn't follow. And so that didn't happen. Could have made something happen had I realized what was happening. I don't know how I missed that. It was so strange. But we're going slow, which means someone's probably going to attack. Let's see. Does anyone attack? No, not really. Ian, but there's so many riders in front of him that I know he's not going to get away. There's just too many people to chase, and you can see the stream of riders coming around. And he puts in his dig, closes that gap. Got a headwind rider in front of me. Like, okay, this isn't gonna happen. Andy the superhero. So now this was the moment where I realized, okay, I messed up last time. I'm going to put in the effort. This guy sees me coming. He's accelerating. He's going to get on my wheel. So I'm putting in a pretty big dig for me. Coming up to Ian, I'm catching him. To be honest, my feeling was Ian's not really going fast enough. So I come around, struggling, but, you know, I'm showing Ian that I'm willing to do the effort. But I can't quite keep it up this hill. And our gap coming out of the corner was pretty minuscule. You can see our speed is just not looking good. Yeah, you know, when we're as a group, we're going well over 30 miles an hour down this hill, and we were only going about 27, so clearly we couldn't muster it. So there was a group up the road, and yeah, I forgot about this. This is why I need to watch the race through before I do the commentary. But basically, we were going to be bridging up to that group, and it just didn't happen. I'm letting all these guys go by so I can get back in the draft. Andy makes the best turn of all time. Look at this. Oh my god. How is that even possible? What did he even just do? Go back and watch that again. Holy cow. Amazing. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. So yeah, right now there's a break up the road. It's a sizable break, and they do manage to snag some points. Oh, I feel like this guy's about to spit right now. Maybe he already did. He was pretty strong, though. I mean, I let him close down a gap for me, and he just did it. Very strong. I think it's happening right now. He looks back. I think he's going to stop. I was fully prepared to come around, but he just kept digging. Pretty epic. I mean, you can see he's using every muscle fiber in his legs. He's pushing, he's pulling. Awesome. And we're back on. Yawning because it's 10:50 p.m. Do you like the sound of my brakes? I do. I think they sound pretty epic. I apologize if you can hear my breathing throughout this in the voiceover, because this microphone is very sensitive on my headset that I use for Zoom calls at work. There's the brakes still up the road. We're gaining for sure. Maybe wondering, like, why bother sprinting so hard out of the corner if you're just gonna, not as the leader out of the corner, but as someone, 10th, 20th wheel in the corner. Why bother sprinting so hard if you're just gonna be coasting on the backside? Well, because if you lose the wheel of the person in front of you, and the group is going 32 miles an hour down the hill, suddenly you have to do an effort that's much more similar to the person on the front of the group. So it's very, very much worth it to put in the extra effort to not lose the wheel. So I believe we've caught the break at this point. Mr. Nick Skaggs. I'm actually amazed at how many attacks and how fast this race was, because in the past I found if I'm not the one attacking, the race ends up being really, really boring. But I guess with over a year off, people have decided that they like to attack too. So I'm really happy about that. Because in the past, some of these races could be pretty boring. And, I race to win, but I also race going on, there's nothing interesting happening, I usually end up doing something, which is obviously, unless you're a breakaway rider, which I'm not. I have pretty low power relatively to, bigger guys. If you're a breakaway rider, an attack is actually good, but most of the time it's not really going to go anywhere other than making the race more interesting. So I'm glad that people were attacking like that Bulls rider who just went. Okay, there we go. So we must be coming up to a sprint lap here. There was another Bulls rider attacking, a couple 11 rider attacking. I was thinking, I might want to go. But then the front of the group just accelerated. So whatever they were doing was pretty unlikely to go anywhere. If you want to attack a group going 29 miles an hour, be my guest. We're going 29 miles an hour. So as you can see, we formed a gap with, there's just like basically the group split in half, and it stayed that way for the rest of the race. Your edges. that's a Bulls rider off the front. Either he's off the front or he's a drop rider, I'm not sure. Either way, it didn't end up working. Didn't work out for that person. Yeah, it is a Bulls rider, so he had tried to break away, and we just reeled him in. And now you'll see that we're going to sprint around him, and it's going to be a little bit chaotic. So here's another example. I waited for the other people around me to sprint. And had to swerve around that guy. That is not exactly what you want to be doing, is it? So once again, 5th place, worth 0 points. Right there, but worth 0 points. So, a waste of energy, but I learned something at least. So even though that other Bulls rider didn't get the points, as you can see, a different Bulls rider got the points, and so that was a pretty good strategy by them, where they could send the rider up the road, and because of that, the other Bulls riders didn't have to chase. It's a pretty good strategy. So Ian's left on the front here, but attacks are flying. And the more people who try to follow the attack, the less chance the attack has of working. More and more people are going for it. They're essentially just closing the gap for the rest of us. Looks like we got about 10 minutes left in this race, which means I only have to pay attention to this for another 10 minutes, and then I can put this audio clip in, and then export the video, and then go to bed and upload it in the morning. That was a pretty powerful attack. I said to the guy next to me, I think that's going to make it. Because nobody, not a single person responded. But then the group just sort of accelerated, and a couple of people also tried to follow. It was just a more delayed response. So basically, I really messed up that corner. And I was like, wow, I really messed that up. But I am considerably better at that turn than I was last year. Learning. The main problem was I just wasn't getting on the power early enough because I didn't think I could. You know, I just paid attention to what other people were doing and got on the power earlier. And if I said last year, I actually meant 2 years ago, because there were no races last year. That dude has the most fluid pedal stroke I've ever seen. his leg is like a rubber band. Waiting for attacks to go. I just scrubbed some speed to make room for people because don't need a crash. I hope this audio is synced up okay. Guess we'll see. Starting to think there might be some action somewhere, so I'm getting down to the drops. And I see the action on the left. I'm ready. This should be the final, if that bell was real, this should be the final sprint lap. You don't want to be too far forward, but you don't want to let people get away either. This guy shuts it down for me. As you can see, there's a bit of a swarm. I'm trying to stay up, trying to not get swallowed by the swarm. It gets hard when people start moving to the outside. Getting very close with the end there. This is the last sprint, and this is the most gruesome version of me waiting. I mean, I am so... Look at this. Look at this. I'm like, okay, Ian's gonna go. I just have to go with him. Boom, Ian goes. It's all going to plan, but nope. I get shoved to the outside. I have to stop pedaling. And I'm totally out of the draft now. Lost all my momentum. So just do everything I can to get my placement up for no points again. But yeah, that's the race. It was really fun. It was really great to be back racing after so long. And I felt really great the whole time. Went for a nice ride today. I felt totally good. So I'm excited for the next time I can make it out and hopefully do a little better.